Hi, I'm Luke.
I'm Richard.
And this is the Spiritable podcast.
We're having conversations about big spiritual, moral, and social issues in hopefully a more grounded way.
We talk a lot from the religious philosophy of this guy, Emanuel Swedenborg, and our own twist on Christianity. Check out episode 9 for more on that.
But of course, we don't have all the answers, so we like to bring on guests with their own philosophies.
Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, atheist, etc.
To help get new perspectives and to challenge each other's beliefs.
Everyone has some relationship with spirituality, but for some dumb reason it can be hard to talk about.
And everyone's experience with life is going to be a little different, and that's what makes it so interesting.
So, thanks for joining us on Spiritable.
Hey, y'all. Did you catch my wink?
No. I just heard like like sort of flirty, sort of southern, sort of depressed. I don't know. There was a lot of stuff there.
That's where the exhaustion came in. The depression was not intended. That was just the real me coming out.
All right, people who are watching this, I know where you're looking right now, and my eyes are up here, okay? I know you're looking at our new shirts here that my sweet, sweet mother made back on Christmas, and I kind of forgot about them until I rediscovered them a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
But it was a misprint, and she felt terrible because these say Spiritables, not Spiritable. And I thought that was very cute and very funny. So I'm showing some support, some love to my mom by wearing these t-shirts. So thank you, Mom. So we have no guest today, which means that Rich and I are going to do a little bit of a spiritual deep dive on a new church topic that we think is pretty unique to our belief comparatively to other religions, other cultures. So guess what it's going to be? Richard? Tell them what they're waiting. That was bad. I'm sorry.
How you doing today?
Dude, I tried to sleep in last night and I could not do it. I think like spiritually, mentally, I've been a little down, just fatigued, realizing some of the best parts about myself are also some of the worst parts about myself, like my drive to go and succeed and not care about history and just focus on what tomorrow is bringing. I can't relax. Like I can't do it. Like my left brain is rigidly in control of my right brain at all times. And my right brain just can never frolic and play in a meadow because my left brain's like, here's the path on the meadow. Here are your regulations and your rules. You'll get there and then it'll be fine.
Have you seen the movie Hot Fuzz?
I have, yeah.
I watched it the other night, and when the main character was talking about how he can't shut his mind off, I thought about you.
Yeah.
I also did.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Also, shut up.
Got him.
But so that's been tough because I'm pretty consistently happy as a person, but I'm very inconsistently content and fulfilled with my life. And so that's been a little bit of a struggle for me to figure out how to deal with it and what some strategies are there to feel content, and not needing a next thing to feel content. Because I realize that's not how that is sustained.
What do you see as the difference between happy and content? I agree with you there's a difference. I'm just wondering what your distinction is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think happiness is more of a decision and content is more of a feeling. How's that line up with what you think? That's my short description.
Yeah, I think happiness for the most part is a decision. I mean, obviously there are things that are so big in our life that they make us not happy.
But I can look at my life holistically and be like, I have all these great things and I feel like I'm being a good person and I'm being useful and I'm happy with all that. But I'm not content because if I'm content, I die. I'm a shark. I got to keep swimming or else I die. That's been a little bit of a struggle for me recently, and just realizing that I have a hamster on a wheel in my mind, constantly going. And I just have no idea how to give that hamster a break. And just a break to be a break. I can't even watch a TV show without it being planned in my mind as a way to recuperate so that I can do X, Y, and Z. I don't operate like that. And it's a great thing, but it also sucks,
Yeah.
So trying to figure that out. Maybe I need therapy. I've always wanted to go see a therapist, but
yeah, therapy's great.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's a little about me, in my whole life.
I'm sorry that I started smirking as you were opening up. I just didn't expect you to say hamster, and it just really hit me in a weird way.
I didn't see a smirk.
I have a hamster, and I was like, didn't expect the word hamster. I don't know why I found that so funny.
How are you feeling? I don't know, mentally, spiritually, that kind of thing. Anything on your mind?
Well, getting my preaching schedule made the fact that I'm going to be a minister feel really real. And I may have talked about this a different time on the podcast, but I basically constantly flip-flop between two extremes in my mind about the career I'm going into. One extreme being, this is all fake and nothing's real and religion is a sham and I'm going into a joke profession when I'm doubting.
Yeah, in the worst part.
And then on the other side, this is the most important job in all of humanity, and who the hell do I think I am
That's also a bad thing.
to be able to do it?
I thought you were going to go to the positive side. You're still on the negative.
No, because they're both extremes, so they're both not good.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm in the middle where I'm like, I think this is really important, super, super important, and I'm getting better at it every day. And
Yeah.
I can do this. Today, I'm struggling with the second extreme. This is the most
who am I?
important thing in the world, and I'm 25. Like,
What life experience?
let me help you deal with the spiritual fallout of your divorce at the age of 25.
I have the expertise.
Let me just drop some knowledge on you about that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're struggling with addiction? You don't feel connected to God? Oh, don't worry. I'm 25 years old. Like, who am I to do this?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
It's true. And I think with that, it's just so important to present yourself, yes, as a minister, but also as a human being and as a person. And you don't have all the answers.
Yeah, of course.
And I think it's good for anyone to know that, because that was a struggle I had growing up, was thinking that ministers were perfect and had to have all the answers and were rigid and immovable. So I think it's good for people to realize that you're just a guy.
Yeah.
At the end of it, not to downplay your profession at all, but
Yeah, you need to be able to connect.
Yeah.
With people.
Speaking of connection, let's connect to our audience and feed them some hot truths.
You ready for some piping hot truths?
Let's do it.
Some piping hot knowledge.
Ding.
Ooh, careful. It's hot.
Hot truths. Let me turn the oven off to be safe.
Thanks.
You just turn it back on, sorry.
Oh.
So we have no guests, so we're trying to...
Don't you roll your eyes at us, Ben. That's a great bit.
I'm sorry, that was some great space work. You guys are brilliant comedians.
Thank you. We will allow
it's called
compliments.
improv.
So we're going to go into sort of a heavier topic about our religion that we think is kind of cool, that might be different from other religions, other philosophies or perspectives. So let's get into it. Topic is...
The afterlife. What's going on with that?
Yeah. How do you think that works? I'm curious to know, because everyone has a different idea about what happens after we die. So if you have some coherent or even incoherent thoughts and you want to tell us about it, leave them in the comments section. Curious to know.
I think the new church view of the afterlife is pretty different in some really important ways, especially contrasted with the sort of strict doctrinal stance of a lot of other branches of Christianity on the afterlife. So the new church still believes there's a heaven and a hell. Good people live in heaven. Bad people live in hell.
That's a pretty basic version of it.
People are angels.
That is a new one. That's a fresh take. If you look up angel on Wikipedia, the fourth entry on Wikipedia is the new church view of angels, which are that angels are actually people who have died and gone to heaven.
Yeah, which I also think a lot of people
That's an intuitive thing.
think. Growing up, my grandma died before I was born. We just grew up calling her Angel Grandma.
Angel grandma?
Which is so cute.
I like that.
Oh.
That's nice.
But so, heaven, hell, people are people either way they go.
Again, this is our opinion. Pause, disclaimer alert, this is what we think based on our religious view, our religious texts. So, grain of salt.
Yeah, and so you might think, right when I die, what happens? And so our religion also differs in a couple of ways about that. One being you don't wake up immediately in heaven or immediately in hell. There's this sort of in-betweeny area where you figure things out and figure yourself out that is called the world of spirits.
It's like a lobby, a waiting room.
It's like a
in
waiting
doctor's
room,
office.
but you don't just wait. Yeah. You do a bunch of stuff there.
I think a lot of people sometimes confuse the world of spirits with the Catholic view of purgatory, which is because I've had some Catholics I've talked to be like, oh yeah, that's purgatory. I'm like, no, not exactly. Because purgatory is, a vastation period of purging and atoning for wrongdoing and, going through a pretty horrific period of like a long period of time to then go to heaven I'm not an expert in purgatory, but.
Yeah, and I think there is some stuff about purgatory that does line up with the world of spirits idea. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. Because basically in the world of spirits, you figure out what kind of person you are. Which, let's be honest, none of us really know what kind of people we are. We're just doing our best.
Especially when we're 24 and 25, young adults.
We don't know. Am I a good person? I hope so. I don't know. I'm pretty selfish a lot of the time. I try not to be. But after death, more and more you get to realize and get to actually see inside yourself, see the person that you are, the reason you do things, your motivations, your loves, and it helps you decide the kind of place you want to live. And
you don't just pick that willy-nilly, like you decide it in accordance with the life you've lived on earth, which is a huge thing about our version of Christianity. Like, no faith alone, we're not into that necessarily, but, the actions in your life defining who you are spiritually. A constant choice to be the kind of person you want to be. So in the afterlife, in the world of spirits, when you're figuring these things out and adopting wholeheartedly your main motivations and values, you've built that up over a lifetime.
Yeah, because basically what you do is, one, based on the things that you like and love and care about and are motivated by, and two, reinforce and grow those things. So, if I like gardening and I start to do a lot of gardening, I will steadily love it more and more as I get more and more into it. So it's that sort of concept. So yeah, after death, you start to tell why you lived the way you lived. So the reason why I think it matches up with some idea of purgatory is that sometimes that's not like that pleasant a process. Like you don't, just like therapy can sometimes be painful.
Just like even self-reflection. Like I've realized some things about myself, like I was just talking about earlier, that I'm like, oof, not super fun to realize these things. Yeah. So like not going to be a great process a lot of the time, but rewarding in a different way.
Yeah, so there's that idea of like the working through it can be painful, as a lot of like work on yourself can be. So I think that's how it's similar to purgatory.
Yeah.
I think it's
it does take a period of time.
I think it's not similar in that from what I understand of purgatory, and again, I'm not an expert on it. I haven't studied purgatory. It's more of sort of a serve your time type of feeling to it. And, people during the time of the Catholic Church in like the Middle Ages would like buy their families way out of purgatory and things like that because you didn't want to be in purgatory. Anyway. It was a place you went when bad stuff happened or when you did bad stuff. And no one wants to buy their way out of like the process of spiritual growth. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
So anyway, once you figure all this stuff out about yourself, basically you choose where you go. And that's another big difference, is that God doesn't send anyone anywhere. Oftentimes people can see it that way.
As like God punishing someone to hell, but not really the way it works.
In the same way, like if a kid runs out in the street and a car's about to hit them and their parents yell really loud, like, come back or watch out. Like the kid can think like, oh man, my parent was really angry at me right there. Well, no. They were doing their best to help you and you interpreted it that way. And so people can interpret basically God letting people choose where they want to go based on what they care about as God choosing for them. Does that make sense? Did I explain that?
So is God the parent yelling at the kid?
Yeah. So basically, like if a person goes to hell, people will be like, oh, wow, God sent that person to hell. When really it's just that person's interpretation of like, God didn't let me do the things I wanted to do, so he's punishing me. And it's like, well, you don't get to do the things you want to do because the things you want to do are hurt people.
Sorry.
So, yeah. God's bad, I guess.
Also, I like our version of hell, which is kind of a weird sentence, but because it feels sort of loving to evil people, because it's not like a constant like punishing them with fire and torture, but evil people want to do evil things, so God has allocated a place for people to do evil things around other evil people who all are sharing those similar values and motivations. So like you choose your hell based on your life again. So like if you want to be an evil person, God's like, yeah, go be an evil person. Just don't corrupt good people or good things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is like, again, it's not God making torture for anyone. It's people creating that for themselves by, first of all, being horrible to other people doesn't actually make you happy. And also there are a bunch of other people that are being horrible to you. So the combination of those two things makes hell what it is. It's not a great place. You don't want to be there. But God didn't do any of that. Yeah, and so it is sort of like a mercy thing, because bad people wouldn't be happy in heaven, because heaven is where you do good things, and bad people don't want to do good things.
And there's some cool things in, how like we're into Emanuel Swedenborg and his writings and stuff. There's some cool parts in, I forget which book of his, but where he writes about evil people who have like tried to get into heaven and just like go there because that's where they think they're going to be happy, and like just having horrible experiences because it's just so misaligned with who they are. Like heaven just does not interact with the kind of person they are on that level. So it's painful for them, and they go back to where it's comfortable and safe for them, which is hell. It's interesting.
I personally really connect with the idea because I never really liked the idea of us not being in control of our eternal life, or like it's basically like a roulette of where we end up, which is sort of the predestination idea. When you're born, God's already decided whether you're going to heaven or hell, and so it doesn't really matter what you do. Seems just never made sense to me, because why would God create people to go to hell? And we have an idea that is talked about where the only sense that the new church believes in predestination is that everyone is predestined for heaven. And we can choose...
We're getting into predestination right now?
We can choose to not go there, but God creates every person being like, oh, and I have the perfect place in heaven for you. Like, I know where you would fit so well. I know where you'd be so happy at our creation. And then sometimes we're like, nah, not about that. And we don't. But I think that's just a really cool idea that there's a place in heaven that was designed for every single person that's ever lived.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. And I think it's also useful to point. I think it's also useful to point out that I hear some people push back on the idea of like choice going to heaven and hell, saying, well, if it's all up to human choice, everyone would just choose heaven. That doesn't make any sense. But kind of what I was saying before is that by the time you die, if you're an old person, a rational person who's gone through a full life, you are the product of your choices, and your spirituality is kind of set in place by your actions. And so if you're a bad person and love doing evil things, you're not going to want to just go and choose heaven. And we did talk about this a little bit, but I think it's useful to clarify. Like, the person you have become at that point is not a good person in this version. So you can't just choose to go to a really, really good place, because you're going to hate it, and it's not going to be aligned with the person that you are. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's like a whole intense structure of like spiritual physics that goes into this whole thing about where people go and the location of things in heaven. That's fascinating.
Maybe before we get into that, I feel like it's useful to say that heaven and hell are just communities of people, of angels and evil spirits, which is like our term for people in hell, evil spirits, just living useful lives, going about their business kind of as we do on earth as people, but just to like the nth best degree, or I guess worst degree. Because I think a lot of people have an idea of heaven just being like an amalgamation of spirits, just a drop in a pool of spirits, just like waiting for the second coming, like a Christian idea, or an eternal glorification of Jesus and just constant prayer, or constant feasting, or constant like wealth, and then torment in hell. But that's not really the way we think it operates. And there are some interesting parts in Emanuel Swedenborg's writings where people who have died and gone there have had experiences of of just being allowed to experience, eternal glorification or eternal feasting, and they get bored and they hate it, because I would. Like, can you imagine every day for the rest of forever just having a big old party and feasting over and over again? That trips me out. And it did for them too, and they were like, nah, this isn't good. So yeah, we think that in heaven and hell, people are just living lives, being who they are with people that love the same things.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good distinction to make.
Yeah, well explained.
Yeah.
So another interesting idea about the afterlife is how the afterlife interacts.
I gotta pause you. I'm sorry. You have a big old hair sticking out the back of your head, and I need to
Yo, grab
rip
it,
that
dog,
out.
grab
Is it
it.
attached? Oh, it is attached. It's a white hair. What are they doing to you in T school?
What? I have a white hair?
Yeah. I can't grab it. So like, oh, I got it.
Are you sure it's white?
It looks pretty white, my dude. Oh, maybe it's slightly gingery still.
No, yeah, it's still ginger.
It looks pretty white.
I think it's still ginger. This is important.
Great podcast content here. Yeah.
Yo, viewers, do you see this single strand of hair?
The sick tent.
Tell me, comment below if this is red or white. I'm going to assume that this is red and not think about that anymore.
So yeah, we've gone over world of spirits, heaven and hell, how they're like the function of them, I guess.
And there's so much more.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a
Do we
book
wanna go
that
into, like-
Emanuel Swedenborg wrote
Oh yeah, plug
called
it.
Heaven and Hell that just talks about so much stuff. Check it out. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, if you're a person like us who's like kind of fascinated with the afterlife and what that looks like and gathering different ideas about what is possible, what could be out there, go check out Heaven and Hell by Emanuel Swedenborg. Some awesome experiences in there. And just, I think a lot of common sense stuff too, that like people kind of believe, but it's not the expressed dogma of a lot of religions.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
So, how does the afterlife affect people in this life, on Earth, in the world?
Also, can we affect it?
Dum dum. Well,
Does it go both ways?
there's some interesting stuff about this. Generally, they're separate. There it is. See you next time. As a general rule, they're separate, and people don't see into heaven and hell don't see into earth.
But also people have had like near-death experiences and that kind of thing.
But yeah, there's some interesting
Crossover.
times where crossover happens. I mean, a classic example is, how did Emanuel Swedenborg know about all this stuff? Well, he like saw it.
God was like, man.
Yeah, so there's so many people that have these near-death experiences or visitation
Or like-
from people who have died.
Like my grandma passed away. She visited me. Like that's not me personally, but an example.
So
that work?
I am naturally a huge skeptic. As a sort of out the gate honest statement, I'm very skeptical when people are like, "Yeah, I saw my grandpa." I'm like, "Cool, dude." But that being said, about a year ago, I spent time in an old folks' home as part of my study to be a minister. And the extent that they talked about interaction with spirits was really, really fascinating.
Did they do that a lot?
And yeah.
Like, I mean, had that dialogue with you? And
Yeah, a bunch of different people did. And at first I was like, well, they're getting kind of old, but I think that's outrageous. And really, I had to come to grips with a lot of skepticism that I had.
Can you give it? I'd love to hear like a snippet of a conversation.
So there was one woman who I was talking to her and just about her life, and she talked about when her husband passed away and how she was really lonely for a long time until her husband started to visit her. And she was like, yeah, and for the past about 15 years, every night, my husband sits at the side of my bed and we have a conversation. And I was like, whoa, that's
a lot.
intense.
That's a lot.
Another woman talked about her husband who passed away, and she was like struggling with a lot of doubt about what happened to him. Where is he? She said he visited her and said, like, things are going really well. I'm really happy, and take as long as you need. I'll be waiting for you. And so there's these really, really cool stories about people being comforted, and people knowing that everything's going to be okay from these seeming interactions with heaven. And it's really fascinating because, again, the skeptic in me says, like, okay, well, yeah, so their psyche is suffering from trauma, and so they fabricate a vision to help them cope. I think that's what a lot of
Skeptic's
science
point of
would
view.
say. I think that basically you'll always be able to explain anything away. And what I mean by that is sort of getting back to the very foundation of what I think religion is based on. We don't call religion science because we can't explain religion. We can't quantify religion. It's a spiritual experience, and we're not in a spiritual world. And I think to the extent that we could quantify religion, it would take away people's freedom to believe it or not. And so, of course, to any spiritual experience that a person has, to any near-death experience or visitation from someone who's passed, there will be a way to say, oh, well, that's your psyche doing this, or when you almost died, that was the firing of your brain doing this or that, and even sometimes in a measurable way. And that doesn't mean that the spiritual aspect of it isn't true. It just means that our ability to throw science at it lets us still believe what we want to believe.
Just because science is true doesn't mean spirituality isn't true.
Exactly. And so
It's like a false dichotomy, I feel like.
I am very much of a lot of people are like, well, the mind and the spirit aren't real. It's just your brain stimulating something outside of itself, but it's all just brain firings, and there's nothing above the natural. And my point of view is very much that the mind acts on the brain, and the brain fires because our spirit, our mind, charges it to, causes it to. So from that sort of foundation, I think, yeah, there's a lot of science. It's like, oh, when people have near-death experiences, their brain does a bunch of weird stuff, and that's why they think they have these weird dreams and stuff. But I think their brain fires like that because of whatever is happening with their spirit at that time. And I don't know what's happening.
Maybe like old people are just like, because they're close to death, their spirits are becoming more ready to be permanently a part of the spiritual world and not be attached to a physical body anymore.
Possibly, or maybe just, the longer time you spend believing something, the more confident you are in it. And so the more you're able to experience something without it impeding on your freedom. Because gravity doesn't impede on my freedom to not believe in gravity, because I totally believe in gravity. I never would struggle with doubt about that. But so I think this connection with spirits is really.
So I just steamrolled you. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Getting back to do spirits communicate with us? Getting back to do spirits communicate with us? I think it's we can't say all yes or all no. Like, there are some that people are probably just making up, and there are some that probably actually happen. We can't give a solid answer to yes to all, no to all. But I do think there are times when that has happened.
I heard a really, really interesting thing that happened to someone recently. Or it didn't happen recently, I heard about it recently. Basically, a guy's wife died, and he was really, really broken up about it, really struggling with it. And he had this dream that his wife appeared to him and was like, hey, I see that you're really lonely. It's okay for you to find someone else. Like, it's okay. And in fact, this woman, I recommend. I think you guys would work great. It was like a friend of hers. She was like, I think that would be a great match. And he woke up and he was like, that was a super weird dream. I don't know what to make of that. And so he grappled with it for a few days and was like, you know what? I'm just going to tell this other woman that I had this weird dream. Because I can't just keep it in my own head anymore. And he came and told her, and she was like, yeah, me too.
No.
She's like, I had that dream too.
No. What?
And the interesting thing about that is that they didn't get married.
Really?
They were like, yeah, that's not going to work. She was wrong.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Did they try?
Yeah, they tried, and they were like, nah, it's not going to work out.
Huh.
So I think this whole spirits appearing to us is not like a prophetic Yeah, I'm not big into believing people having prophetic visions, because I think again that hurts our freedom to believe things. If we have a prophecy and then it comes true,
we're coerced into seeing the future or something like that.
I think being able to see
Coercion's
the future makes us not free anymore because we can't choose to do something different, right?
So like I think we can have spiritual experiences while on earth that involve the spiritual plane, heaven and hell. But I don't think a lot of people, and it's hard for me to just like completely say yes or no to everything, as I already said, but like I don't think a lot of people can choose to have a spiritual experience and like close their eyes and be on the spiritual plane. It's just hard for me to, at least in my westernized culture, believe that because of where I'm at with technology and culture and society.
Yeah, it feels very much to me like an anomaly. Also, keeping in mind that if you are contacted by spirits, if it's possible, it's just people. They're just people. So there's no, I don't think you need to read in a sense of grand authority. It's just a person. Like if I'm like, hey, Luke, I think that you should date this friend of mine. He could be like, oh, no, I don't think so. And you could do the same thing, even if they're dead. It's just a person.
Yeah, that's true. It's not God himself coming and talking to you.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people say they have experienced God appearing to them and telling them to do things. And I don't really know what to say about that.
So, backtracking a little bit, why do you think some people do have spiritual experiences where a loved one visits them and some people don't? Like, I remember after my grandma died, I was like hoping to have her visit me in a dream. So why do you think it happens for some people and not others?
I could speculate, and to be honest, I have no idea. If I'm going to be honest, I have no idea. Some speculations are maybe that person feels more open to that experience happening, and so it doesn't interfere with their freedom as much as it would with another person. And maybe we don't actually know how much it would interfere with our freedom, so we can't say like, but it wouldn't have interfered with mine. Well, you don't really know what that experience is going to do to you. Maybe it was like a sense of they needed it more or needed it less. But then you get into like, if you didn't have a spiritual experience, it wasn't as bad a loss that you were going through than someone that did.
Yeah, that's good.
Which makes me uncomfortable. So there are a lot of speculations, but when it comes down to it, I don't know. I've never had like a clear experience where like someone appeared to me and was like, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
In our ghost episode that we had, I talked about some weird things I've seen that I don't really know how to explain.
What was that, like episode 4 or something?
Yeah.
Go check it out.
And I had there was one time where right after my grandpa died, I was at like a little Vesper service and I was just listening to piano music. I just felt really, really close to my grandpa, who I never really felt that close to while he was alive. I didn't see him that much. I just felt like really close to him all of a sudden. But like I didn't see anything. Maybe that was just me reflecting on him as a person, and so I felt connected to him. I don't necessarily chalk that up to a spiritual experience. So it's hard for me to be like, this is why, because it's never happened to me.
Yeah, it's tough.
But the thing about reaching out to try to contact spirits is really interesting.
Do you have something to say about that? Or
yeah,
what do you think?
The Swedenborg talks about at one point...
The Swedenborg.
Swedenborg's writings talk about basically generally what happens when we try to contact spirits, and the spirits, if we are able to contact spirits, the kind of spirits that we contact.
Probably not good ones.
Yeah, because basically a lot of it comes back to this idea of freedom. And basically good spirits, angels, recognize that people need to be left in freedom to make their own choices.
Evil spirits are like,
And bad spirits, evil spirits are like, yeah, I would like to make this person's day bad. You're like, I don't know, that's... So if you reach out, like, I want to connect with the...
Or I'm going to whip out this Ouija board.
With the spiritual world in whatever way you mean to do that. There's a section that talks about the kind of spirits that you'll connect to are not the ones that you want to be connected to. Just an interesting little like, hey, this isn't worth your time. And even if it could work, which it's still a little vague about, but even if this could work, it wouldn't be a good thing that happened. So yeah, it's the whole like, do spirits talk to us and how much and why? I'm sort of just like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be like, you're dumb, that wasn't your grandma, to someone who really believes that and really feels comforted by that, because it's not useful. What does that accomplish for them? Nothing. And I also don't feel willing to say, like, here's spirits can contact people, and here's how it happened, and here's how you can do it. And because I don't know, I haven't.
Again, 24, 25, what do we know? I think on a day-to-day level, though, we are affected by the spiritual world, which is kind of a trippy thought, because we are spiritual beings. Like, even if you're an atheist or you don't believe in God or you do believe in something, you know, we're all operating on a spiritual level, and we're able to think about these things, and we're affected by things. So, like, when we are, whatever we're dwelling on, oh, this is a trippy thought. I don't even know if I want to get super.
Yeah, go for it.
Correct me when I'm wrong, Mr. Theologue. But like,
I'll do my best.
Whatever we're reflecting on and ruminating on spiritually, we are involved with other spirits thinking about the same things, being in the same sort of spiritual plane. So like, if I'm being really good and useful and helpful and thinking about the love I feel doing this and feeling that love, I am in that moment around other spirits in that same place of love. And when I am doing bad things and thinking about bad stuff, or like giving into certain evil desires or whatever, I am putting myself in the spiritual plane, in a hellish spiritual plane with evil spirits, because I'm choosing to be influenced by those evil and or good things. So like, you're around other stuff, and like, ooh, yeah.
Backing up real quick. So we've talked about, we all have a mind, we all have a spirit. You having a good time?
I just need a stretch.
So we talked about how we all have a mind, we all have a spirit. And I think it can be really easy to assume that our spirit is inside us right now, but getting into sort of some sort of esoteric ideas, stuff that is spiritual can't be in a natural place. Like, my spirit can't live in a natural world. So what that means is that our spirits are actually in the spiritual world all the time. So it's not like when I die, my spirit will travel up to the spiritual world.
Yeah.
It's there. I'm just not aware that it is, because I'm working through my senses.
Yeah.
And so that's how you're affected by different spirits in heaven and things like that, or in heaven and hell and stuff like that, is because your spirit's up there.
I do want to bring it back down to like a more grounded thing though, because and see if I can come up with a couple questions, because I feel like
I've also got some grounded things I want to say.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm just gonna hit you with a quick question.
Cool, hit me.
Because I think people are curious, like, what do I look like when I die and go to heaven? Am I just a young version of myself? If I'm an angel, do I look nice? Do I have wings? Oh, I wish angels had wings, but I don't think they do. Do I look evil in hell? What do I look like?
So there's this whole idea of your appearance matching your internal state. So it's just like when I am smiling, it matches my internal state of being happy, or it can, unless I'm faking a smile.
Or if I'm like making a duck face, it's because I'm internally a duck.
Thanks for that. You did a great job. I'm so proud of you. So in the spiritual world, when we are no longer material anymore, it's even more so. And our actual appearance is based on what we care about.
Is it derived, like, because so much of our, I don't want to get into identity too much, but like my version, like how I see myself is very tied into my reflection, like how I look and the way my body is shaped and I feel So I feel like that does affect my internal. So like when I do die and go to heaven, am I going to have a semblance of my physical appearance now, or?
That's a great question. I'm not really exactly sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I think some sort of the way I like to imagine it is, you ever looked at a picture of yourself and been like, it's a good picture of me. Looking good in that picture. I'm not that attractive, but in that picture, I'm looking good.
So you're saying Snapchat's beautify filter is heaven?
Yeah, exactly. If you want to see what you look like in heaven, open up Snapchat. There you go.
Flip on through.
No, so I like to think that generally we look like us, but it does talk about people being the more loving they are, the more beautiful they appear. And so people actually, and it also talks about people in hell appearing like monstrous in to people that are in heaven. Like they appear like monsters because internally they act like monsters. And so this is
But to each other they look normal.
Yeah, to each other they look normal.
So I think appearance kind of fluctuates depending on other people's spiritual states. That's trippy. Trippy alert.
Yeah, so that's...
Did you have some grounded things you wanted to talk about?
That was not grounded.
No, it was grounded enough. I think a lot of people out there wonder.
This idea of us being affected by spirits, I think, is useful for me in that when I have a thought... Have you ever had one of those thoughts that just pops into your mind and you're like, whoa, why did I... Oh,
why am I thinking about Waluigi
that?
doing that? I'm going down this way.
Okay. And you just have like a random, like horrible thought. Like every once in a while you just have a thought, you're like, I want to punch that person right in the face. And you're like, why? I'm not even mad at them. Why did I think that? Or you have... So I think your connection with the spiritual world kind of explains that type of thing. Where your thoughts a lot are based on the spirits that are around you. And sometimes you get a little thought and you're like, whoa, don't like that. Because your thoughts aren't actually you.
Don't believe everything you think.
Which is fascinating. To me, that feels like a really freeing idea because I don't have to guilt myself and beat myself up.
But it also like
over
can
negative
make you
thoughts
feel
I
like a
have.
little bit, I want to say claustrophobic almost, like not in control like of who you are. Like if there are so many things passing through my mind and this isn't even me, what is me? Am I nothing? Am I everything? You can go down, you can
I think that what people are their choices.
I've been doing a lot of eyebrows this episode.
So like the thoughts that you sit and think about and stay on, those are you because you kept them around. You know? Like if you go to the grocery store, not every box of cereal in the aisle belongs to you. It's the one you put in your cart and take home that belongs to you.
It's when you invite in for tea.
It's the same thing with thoughts. So that idea helps me. If it helps you, awesome.
If we've totally tripped you out, we apologize. Sorry.
Yeah,
That sounded unsympathetic. Because I can definitely think about these things sometimes and like freak myself out, and I just kind of have to take a deep breath and be like, one day at a time, just living to the best of my abilities, and it's all gonna be okay.
So we talked about a lot of deep stuff this episode, a lot of very like heady stuff. If you have any questions about anything we said,
tip tap away.
Please comment. I'd love to answer any questions you have. If you want to tell me I'm so wrong and I made no sense, I'd love to hear that too, because it would help me be better the next time I try to explain this. So this is a huge topic and clearly not one that can be explained in its entirety in however long this ends up being.
Yeah. And again, we are just like kind of religious scholars. Richard way more than me, and so we're into this stuff, but we're not experts. We're not 100% certain about everything. So again, like I said in the beginning, grain of salt. We're just doing our best to present our ideas as we see them, and we hope it's useful for you. And if you don't like, we're not saying to adopt everything, but just think about some things. So you never know.
Yeah, so if you have any questions about anything we talked about this episode or want to give us any feedback, feel free to comment on our YouTube video or send us an email at spiritablepodcast spiritable@gmail.com.
Also, we've recently gotten some reviews on iTunes, so jump on that train. Super fun for us to read and see those reviews. So that's been a good time. So thank you for watching the Spiritable podcast. If you're interested in more, go see our other episodes. We're on every single podcast platform there is, which is pretty cool. Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, all that stuff. We're on YouTube if you want to see the video, which is kind of fun. Sometimes we do behind the scenes. No, that's a lie. We do extra things sometimes. Anyway, send us an email at spiritablepodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic you want us to talk about, or just leave a comment somewhere and we'll get back to you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Do a little intro part.
Okay. Can we play a fun game first?
Do that.
Yeah, let's play a fun
Here's
game.
a fun game, audience. Ready? So you're going to leave comments below rating how real of a person Richard is when he tries to give an on-the-spot introduction. Okay, so Richard, you take it away. Just give a little introduction, and we'll comment below and see what they think.
This seems unfair.
Exploitative.
Exploitative is a great word for how this feels. I couldn't even do it. The moment I looked at the screen. Good evening.
No, you have to try.
Okay. I'm so tired today. Can we do this? That's fine. I got it. Got to reposition a couple times. Lean back. We have an intro already. Just comment how I feel. Okay, now I'll do it. It's fine. Stop laughing, Ben. You're ruining my audio. Hey guys, welcome to the Spiritable podcast. Today we're going to be checking in. We're going to be talking about various different things. We're going to be talking about how Luke's doing. We're going to be talking about how I'm doing. Then we're going to talk about how Ben always laughs when I'm just doing my best.
I'm just doing my best.